Alright, welcome back guys. In this video we are going to be learning some cool pen tool tricks, and along the way we will end up masking this image from this background onto this background. It is going to be very interesting, so let's jump right inside Photoshop and get started. So being open here inside Photoshop, the first step to access the pen tool is to press the P key, that's letter P on your keyboard. The first thing you need to do with the pen tool is to go here on the options bar and choose the option you want to work with. As you can see, you can either work with a path or a shape. If you choose shape, Photoshop is just going to give you the ability to create a fill and stroke for your shape. But if you choose a path, those options become invisible. So we are going to stick with the path option for this lecture. So let us select the pen tool, and if you notice on the canvas we have a little star below the pen tool. The little star tells you that the pen tool is currently not active, and if I were to click just once and then move away from that anchor point, you will notice that the little star has disappeared. And notice that as I move along to create lines, I do not actually see the reference guide or the line as I draw it. That is because of a feature that is currently turned off. It is called the rubber band. So let us click on the gear icon on the options bar and enable the rubber band from here. As you can see, you can also click here to change the color of the rubber band. So this will be a perfect example in my case because I have a blue background which is similar to this color. So I can click here to choose any other color, but for some reasons these are all grey out. I think it is because my graphics card has a problem. Now with the rubber band enabled, as I move I can be able to see a visual guide of how my path is going to look like. So I'm just going to press escape key to disable that path and then press Ctrl Z a few times to undo what I've done. So if you look on the layers panel, I have this normal layer and then I have the guides layer on top. The guides layer will just act like a reference guide for me to demonstrate what I need to show you. So you can click here to either enable or disable the guides. When working with the pen tool, you are going to create anchor points, and if I were to zoom in on this image, if you look on this circle, you will notice we have these white dots. Okay, these white dots are called anchor points. So for example, in this anchor point we have this control handle. A control handle is made of two parts. So this is the first part and this is the second part. Depending on the position you are going to draw, the control handles are going to act accordingly. So in total, we have 4 control handles that define the shape of this circle. Just for further understandings, the distance in between 2 control handles is called a segment. So I intend to draw this circle clockwise. So I'm going to click here and drag clockwise. You see, as I drag, I reveal those control handles as you can see there. Then when I let go, I will be able to create a curve. So I'll come to this other anchor point right here, click and drag it down. And as I drag, we are going to define the segment up. So you notice that you can also drag while holding the shift key. And currently it is not aligning to the horizontal line, so I can hold the shift key to make sure everything is aligned just like so. And then I can release. If you were to just come here and click, you will not be able to have this curve segment. So always remember to click and drag to create smooth curves. So I'm just going to come here and click, then drag it to the left just like so to create that segment. You can hold the shift key to constrain it. Nice. Let's continue to this portion. Click here, drag it towards the top, and you can see that as I drag, those handles are created automatically. And if you need to end this path, you can just move over to the first point that you created or the first anchor point, and you will notice we have a small circle below the pen tool. This tells you that you are going to close this path. Now the pen tool returns to the original state with a little star below it telling you that it is currently not active. Now to see the path we have drawn, let us go here on the paths panel, and as you can see we have a work path. It is currently selected. So since it is currently selected, if I were to create any path on the screen, it will just get added to that original path we have here. But let us press Ctrl Z to undo a few times. Let us say you do not save this path and you have it deselected just like so. If you try to create another path this time, this path is going to replace the path we have taken some time to create. So it is not always a good idea to work without saving your paths. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z until we regain that path back. So here we have our original path, and what we need to do is to save it. So you can just double click on it and give it a name. I'm just going to leave it to path 1. And now since we have this path saved, if I were to deselect it and create another path, you will notice this time we have a new work path. So this is how you can create multiple paths inside Photoshop. Always remember to save the path if you are going to reuse it later on. otherwise it gets replaced with a new path. Now, based on what we have learned here, let us see how we can use the pen tool to trace over this path. As you can see, it is a very complex path, guys, but this path sums up almost every technique you are going to need when tracing images inside Photoshop with the pen tool. So I'm going to start by zooming inside, and these guides I created are just for reference purposes. If you look here on the layers panel, we can click on this button to hide or show them. Now we need to create this smooth curve right here, and what we are going to do is to just click here and drag it upward just like so. And as you know, we can hold the shift key to make sure the line is straight. I'll release right about that position, and then I come to this portion. I will not just click once, but since I need to create this segment here, I'm going to click this time and drag it to the bottom section. I'll click here and drag it down just like so. And then again, I'll hold the shift key and just make sure it aligns to the reference guide above it. Now, as you can see, guys, we have a control handle. Now, this control handle, as I mentioned earlier, has two sections. The section down here is called the leading control handle. So this control handle will control this segment, and this control handle is going to control the next segment we need to draw here. So what I'm going to do is to just advance to this position, click there, and then drag it up, hold the shift key to constrain, and then make sure it aligns with that guide. Let go, and then move to this position. I'll click and drag it down, hold the shift key, and let it go. Now, while the pen tool is still active, you can hold the space bar and just pan around the document just like so. Now, here's the problem. Because we click on this anchor point and drag it down, Photoshop assumes the next path we are going to create is going to be a curved path. That is why this segment is extending. So for you to be able to create this smooth line, there is something you need to do, and it's a very cool trick. Notice that as I hold the Alt key and move to this portion, we have the little V, the inverted V below the pen tool. This tells you that if you were to click, you are going to remove the leading control handle here. And still with the Alt key held down, you can still click here one more time with that little V icon and drag down to still bring back that control handle. In my case, I need to remove it completely, so I'm just going to click there. Now, as I release the Alt key, we can be able to just move here and click once to draw a straight path. Of course, you can hold the shift key to make sure it is totally straight. Then you can just move upward again with the shift key and click here. Now, here is another problem. How can you be able to create a smooth path when your previous path was a straight line? In this example, it is very easy because we can just move to this section, we click here and then just drag it down. Hold the shift key to make sure it aligns with the guide above, just like so. And the same thing, you hold the Alt key and click here. So the Alt key is the key you are going to use most of the time when working with the pen tool. And to do the same thing here, I'll just locate this point and click and just drag it somewhere like so. This time I'm following the guide. Now if we try to create the straight line here, as you see, it is not possible because we have this extended handle which is going to dictate how the next segment is going to look like. So we need to disable it. Hold the Alt key and click here at the center. Very cool, guys. We can move here, click, and since these other portions are just straight lines, it becomes even more easy. So I can just click here, click here, click here, and then click here. Now you notice that as we have reached the end, the pen tool is still active. Okay, you can tell by this rubber band. So to disable the pen tool, you can press the escape key. And as we learned, we can go to the paths panel and we see the work path we have drawn right here. You can double click on the path to save it. Now that we have this path saved, that is not all you can do. If you have a missing portion as you were trying to trace a path inside Photoshop, you can always use the direct selection tool to adjust the path again. So let us grab the selection tool from here. We have the path selection tool and the direct selection tool. Both of them share the same shortcut, so you can always press Shift A to toggle between them. So with the direct selection tool, I can zoom into this portion, for example, and I click here. And as you see, we are able to reveal these two control handles. And still with the direction tool, I can grab this handle and move it just like so to redraw that path again. I'll press Ctrl Z to undo that. Now, if you have the pen tool active, there is no need to switch to the direct selection tool as we just did. You can always hold the Control key and that will switch you from the pen tool to the direct selection tool. And of course, you can click here to bring these two control handles and you can still perform the same action just like so. And when you let go of the Control key, you will be returned back to the pen tool. Now, the problem with the direct selection tool is that, notice as I click to adjust this one handle, the opposite control handle gets adjusted as well. if that is not something which you want, let us undo. You can always make sure the control handles are selected, and instead of holding Control key, you hold the Alt key. If you hold the Alt key, guys, you can come here and click on this previous control handle and drag around. You will be able to adjust just the segment that relates to that particular control handle. And as you can see, the leading control handle here doesn't get affected. So you can create pretty complex path with the pen tool if you understand these techniques. Very cool. And if I need to control this other segment irrespective of this other segment, I can just hold the Alt key, which is going to switch my pen tool to this inverted V, and then I can click there, reshape the path just like so, guys. Very nice. So don't always focus on creating perfect paths on the go. You can always do a rough tracing around, and then later on you use these techniques to make sure the selection is crisp, nice, and the way you want. Of course, I ended up distorting my path. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo that change. And the last technique I need to show you before we advance to the next part of this video is that if you hover here with the pen tool, notice that we have the minus sign below the pen tool now. But if I take away from that anchor point, we get the star sign, which means we are going to create another path if we were to click. So how can you be able to add an existing path on this existing anchor point? Notice that if you come here and click with the pen tool, you get rid of that anchor point and the control handles. So let us undo that and do that again, and let's do it again so that you see what I'm saying. So if I click here, you notice the two control handles are gone, and even that anchor point disappears, and we now have this path which we never created in the first place. So let us press Ctrl Z to undo one more time, and for you to be able to create a path on top of this existing anchor point, what you simply need to do, guys, is to hold the Shift key. Now if I go there while holding the Shift key and click on this anchor point, you see it doesn't take away that path, and I can continue tracing around just like so. Very useful techniques, very useful tricks, guys. Hopefully you are finding them very useful. Now, based on the tips and tricks we have learned here, let us now switch to this other document and see how we can apply it to this real world project. So my intention is to trace a path around this bike and the biker and move them onto this town square. This is in Russia, guys. Very beautiful city. So let's return to this document, and the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure I have my pen tool selected as usual, and then I'm going to make sure on the options bar I'm working with path as we discussed earlier on. So I'm going to zoom somewhere around here because I intend to work clockwise, but for some people who are left-handed, they might actually work anti-clockwise. It's all left to you. The tricks still apply, everything works great. So I'm going to click here, and you notice that the tire is very smooth and curved. So I'm going to click and drag somewhere like so, and then come right about this position, click there, and then if I need to click on this position, you notice we have an odd path which is being dictated by this leading control handle. So I'm just going to press the Alt key and click there to chop off the leading control handle in order to be able to move to this position now. Now this part is very tricky, okay guys? So let us apply the technique we learned earlier on. So let us zoom in even further, and as you can see, guys, we have this leading control handle. So if I were to come and click here, the path will totally be off. So first thing we are going to do is to hold the Alt key, click in the middle here on the anchor point to chop off the leading control handle. Now of course, if I come here and click, the path here will not be very smooth because we actually need a control handle that goes towards this direction. But we have already removed this one. How can we be able to bring it back? What you need to do is to simply hold the Alt key again, and then come to the anchor point you just clicked on a moment ago and click and drag to that position. That will bring another control handle just like so, guys. Very nice. Now we can come over here, we click and go to the right, and you see we are able to have this smooth curve right here. And of course you can hold the Alt key to control just this segment to make sure it matches the section you want to place it on, and then control this other side as well. Now everything looks perfect. Now to disable this one again, we are going to hold the Alt key and just click here. And then I'll click somewhere around here, just drag to fill that gap like so. Just continue here. This one looks like an easy fix for me, so I'll just click here, click and drag here a little, come here and click and drag it just to have that smooth curve there. So you notice currently as we are working with the pen tool, we can't be able to remove these holes and these ones right here. So our main focus now is to trace all around the image, guys. So I'm going to fast forward and trace around, so follow along. Now I took some time to trace over the image, as you can see. So before we actually add any other path, let us go to the paths panel and actually save this path, should in case something happen. So I'm just going to double click here and I'm going to call it biker and hit the enter key. Now I'm going to zoom into this tire because we actually need to cut the background from there as well. Before you actually begin cutting, go here on the options bar and click on these overlapping shapes. And you can see we have exclude overlapping shape. Now if we choose overlapping shapes, any path we draw on top of this existing path will be excluded, will be cut out. You can also achieve the same result by choosing subtract front shape. They do the same thing. So let us make sure this one is selected. So let's return to the pen tool, and with all the settings set, I'm just going to click inside here to trace the wheel here. Now as I zoom inside here, you notice that I created this point but it is not looking right. One thing you can do is to hold the control key, which is going to temporarily switch you to the direct selection tool. Make sure the anchor point here is selected. Now you can nudge. Notice that as I hit the left arrow, it goes to the left, and as I hit the right arrow, it goes to the right. So this is called nudging. I can hit the up arrow to take it up, down arrow to take it down, just like so. Very cool pen tool tricks. And I'm just going to continue and cut the other portions using the same technique. Yeah, I think everything looks nice as we have successfully traced around the image. And if you look here on the paths panel, you can also see a visual guide of what we have done. So let's now load all what we have done as selection by holding the control key or the command key if you're using the Mac, and click on the little thumbnail. Now everything is nice, as we can confirm that by seeing these matching ants all over the image. Now let's just click on the camera icon to add a layer mask. And this time we did a great job. So I'm going to return to the layers panel, right click on it and then choose convert to smart object. Now with my move tool, I'm simply going to grab the image and hover to this new document and come right inside. When I see the plus sign, I release. But we have our guy hanging up in the air, which doesn't look realistic. So let's pull it down a bit, just like so. Now the bike doesn't actually look right with the background. As you can see, there is a lot of contrast, this brightness, everything going on. So let's balance it a bit. The first thing I'm going to do is to go to adjustment layers and add color lookup. And under the 3D loot, let's just click inside here and choose maybe Crips 1. Yeah, it balances out everything. And of course, I only want this to affect the layer with the motorbike. So I'm going to click here to add a clipping mask. And I think we can reduce the highlight by adding a curves adjustment layer. So let's go here and add curves adjustment layer to it. And let's just click in the middle here and drag it down. And of course, I still want this to affect just the layer below it, so I'm going to add a clipping mask by clicking on this button. So as you can see guys, after the little adjustments, everything look actually nice. And of course, you can go ahead and paint the shadows, make things look even more realistic. You can grab the bike, move it down, adjust it. But I think you get my point with this video. It was about the pen tool, and I think you have actually learned something from this video. So comment down below to let us know what we left out, so that in future videos we might actually bring an update. So subscribe, and thank you for watching. I'm going to see you in the next one tomorrow. Bye bye.